Hello, welcome to the Mom series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity. My name is Maria. For some of you that know me out there, hey there. It's been since 2007 that I've been coming out here and doing videos on the misrepresentation, the misunderstanding, the misconceptions that continue in the media, and how that sometimes we that have family members, we that have been diagnosed, we that listen to media and doctors in the guise of awareness and understanding, have sometimes perpetuated the myths ourselves. And so I really have been always looking at how the media fuels that that misunderstanding. And it's a diagnosis for some, it's a condition for some, it's a disorder for some, it's an experience for some, and a gift for others. So everyone perceives and has a unique experience. Everyone has their own perception of it. And when I first came out here in 2007, I was looking at the United States of Tarot, which was a dramedy that was on TV every week for a few seasons, and it depicted a woman. Toni Collette played a woman who was diagnosed with DID and living with her family and how they all coped in her community and just what it was like every day. And it was supposed to destigmatize by poking a little fun at it and just trying to show everyday occurrences how a family gets on with this. And they had medical script writers like Dr. Colin Ross, who's renowned expert, bad boy psychiatrist, truth teller, whistleblower, and they also had Dr. Richard Clough as a medical script advisor. They had Steven Spielberg as a director, executive director, and Diablo Cody as the producer, and they had a real person who experienced her life with many health labels, but then eventually diagnosed DID, and then seemingly quickly integrated, and Diablo Cody came across her blog, and she was a writer, so she came on board to try to keep it realistic. And it's still just heightened awareness up the kazoo. I mean, Toni Collette being from Australia, really the UK just started booming with people with DID, or what they called DID. I always got a giggle out of the people over the pond that were from Australia and London and all. It's just all the Britain people that were what I call the British invasion, who were all suddenly getting diagnosed with DID because it raised awareness. And there was a doctor, quite a few, but one particularly in the UK, who really wanted to get DID on the manuals. And he went ahead and did that. And more people came out on YouTube, and I just kind of like backed away. Because it was like, ooh, where have I seen this before? Because I'll be 59 in May. And I was diagnosed in 1986, so I saw the rise and the fall of what used to just be called multiple personality. And nothing has changed, by the way, but the name and the reclassification over and over again. And what I hope to show in the next few videos, I'm going to be doing videos on Monday, this March, every Monday, and following a reading list, is that this has been going on since before Christ, and all during the early church, and all through the Dark Ages, and all through all the centuries. So I'm taking a very historical look, culturally, philosophically, spiritually, modern man medicalizing and pathologizing and labeling and treating. And I'm just going to bring it forward with a lot of different books. So on to see how we got to here, where the media says one thing and we say, but no. And doctors sometimes, in trying to explain to patients how to get well, create iatrogenic symptoms in patients and clients. So I'm going to be talking a lot about dissociation, normal levels. I'm going to be talking about Dr. Jean Martin Charcot, who was a founding neurologist in the late 19th century in Paris, who ran the Salpêtrière Hospital and treated 3 patients, 3 women that, well, actually there were more, but 3 that were on display the most, that were called hysterics. And he pretty much was running a unit of show and tell. Show and tell. It was a circus show. Was bring the woman out and they will perform, either through hypnosis or suggestion or reward. There were 1 or 2 of the patients were very well known for having grand hysteria. They could perform very easily as long as they were rewarded with better wardrobe, freedom to go where they wanted on the ward in the hospital. It was a very big ward. They could be put in lockdown, freedom to eat what they wanted, see visitors. There was a lot of different ways behaviorally that they manipulated these women. He then began to map the woman's body, which he called the Dark Continent. The Dark Continent, so mysterious. And he discovered what he called histriogenic zones of the woman's body. And by applying pressure and touching these different trigger points all over a woman's body, and he could either elicit a response or calm a woman down, agitate her, or even make her lethargic. So what he actually found was, well, this is what he believed, and he was demonstrating. And this is when it all began to unravel for him. Doctors from all over the world came to see these women and to hear his lectures, and paid a lot of money. People that were going into psychiatry, all the Dr. Freud, all the doctors that were well known, that were the founding fathers of psychiatry, learned under Dr. Jean Martin Charcot, who was a neurologist and thought to be a charlatan in his end days. By the time he started using the theory of histriogenic triggers causing them to act the way they did, when they did, or were they just great performers, psychiatry wanted to be a legitimate field. And with him doing this, they couldn't be. So they all kind of went off in their own direction and said, okay, that kind of behavior, if you encounter a patient with that kind of behavior, not hysteria, Freud said it's from trauma in the background that hasn't been resolved. Okay? Dr. Mortin Prince, who became the father of dissociative disorders in America, brought it from Europe to America and coined the phrase multiple personality by looking at the disintegration of personality. All of them noted later that this mapping of the hysterogenic zones had some validity, because later on they were also erogenous zones, but also some of them were where the main chakras were in the body, or where lymphatic areas were that got blocked, or acupressure points. So I want to look at all that a little bit. The other book I'm going to be looking at, so that's called Asti. That's called Medical Muses in the 19th Century Paris, by Asti Husteveat. The next book is Joan Acocella, Creating Hysteria. The next book is The Disintegration of Personality, Dr. Mortin Prince, and you should be able to get it at the library if you don't already own it. I know a lot of you do have these books, but there is a downloadable file. I'll get all the links together. The next book is Cinema and Hollywood, Cinema and Psychiatry, because in the 1940s, film was just coming into its own, a new place of color and big screen, black and white color and big screen, getting away from musicals, getting more into everyday life depictions and psychodrama. So they went to psychiatry and said, we want to show people anxious, nervous, depressed, psychotic, having a nervous breakdown. Interestingly, there's no such thing as a nervous breakdown. It is a movie-made, Hollywood-made term. It is a layman's term that we use all the time now. You hear people saying all the time, oh, well, she had a nervous breakdown, went to the hospital. There is no such thing as a nervous breakdown. There's probably more so breakthroughs where people they've just had enough and they're coming to their breakthrough. So I want to talk about that because a lot of psychiatrists a lot of movie producers went to psychiatrists and said, show us what a neurotic woman looks like. Show us what a depressed person looks like. Show us what a nervous breakdown looks like. Explain to us what a paranoid person looks like. Explain to us what a depressed person looks like. A retarded person. A senile person. On and on. They worked very closely together all through the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s. At the same time, there's another book called Hollywood on the Couch, which looks at how directors went to psychiatry to find out how to keep their starlets and actors in character for a scene, and how method acting and different approaches, how to not have to spend so much time every day on the set working with an actor to get in character, stay in character, but how you could keep them feeling, taking on that character and staying in character and feeling it. And what a lot of directors found later, and psychiatrists then found who did therapy with actors and actresses, was that they couldn't get rid of that character. They had taken on a part of a role. They had gone to a dark place or a scary place, and it stayed with them. Other actors and actresses found that just by imitating and role-playing something, they became stronger in their persona. They felt like that was something they wanted to keep with them, that they wanted. It helped them. So going back to Steven Spielberg and directors, this is what they knew. They knew that you could take a regular person who's wants to be in acting And really, they go through a lot of that trauma in the movie making, in the scene. They're in a scene, they're in a role, they're taking on a character. But a lot of times they don't come out of character. A lot of times that certain part of character will stay with them and it becomes a part of their personality. And they're older. They're old. They don't have to be young going through a trauma. So I want to look at that whole thing and how that works. And then the MK Ultra. I'm going to talk a little bit about MK Ultra and the government project and programs that went on between the 1940s and the 1970s, and how that is very different from the Freemasonry Illuminati. It is not the same thing. And I think in the multiple community we confuse it a lot, and also lay people that are trying to understand multiplicity right away think MK Ultra Illuminati. They think if I was to say I was diagnosed multiple, they would think I've been programmed. We've taken 1 and 1 and made it 3, and it doesn't always go that way for a lot of things. It's the same reason why media is right now struggling, and our world is struggling with, well, who should have guns? Is it the guns that are evil, or is it the mentally ill that are evil? Well, neither. You cannot predict when a person is going to become mentally ill, but to say that a person is going to be violent when they're mentally ill is 1 and 1 equals 4. It's ludicrous. It doesn't always go together. So that's pretty much what we're doing when we keep putting the MK Ultra program multiples with the Illuminati. It doesn't always run together. So I'm going to be reading some books about that, some online articles, and hopefully I'll get your input on that. Other book is, let me get back to my list, Creature of Habit by the Troops for Trudy Chase. Creature of Habit, A Journey. Because and I'll be reading from it if you can't, find it. But it is at the library now. I know it is an expensive book, and I was very blessed to have it gifted to me by Kari Innings. Thank you, Kari. I hold this book sacred. If we look at multiple personality or dissociative identity disorder at the very low tempo of the spectrum, it is post-trauma. Okay? Let's say it's over here. And then you have post-trauma, then you have complex post-traumatic stress. So post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic stress. What used to be called war fatigue, then was called post-traumatic stress. Then it was called complex post-traumatic stress. You just weren't getting over it, no matter what you did. It wasn't going away. Then, or so many traumas, it became complex. Then it went into multiple personality. You needed others with you to survive, and they just don't know to go away yet because you haven't thanked them enough. You haven't remembered enough of what you went through, so now they're still with you, reminding you every day. Okay, so that is it in a nutshell, the way it is described to people. That there is a personality, an alter, an aspect for every trauma. And what I have been looking at is how the numbers grow in therapy often. And when with other people that have been diagnosed multiple, how the numbers grow. I've been looking at that phenomenon of, I've been looking at simple things like when on a thread in a support group or an awareness group with other multiples, how all it takes is 1 or 2 people to write on a thread and sign their name or their initials, and maybe they're the younger children in a system group, and then all of a sudden the entire thread is everybody has their younger children out chit-chatting with them. There's something going on there. What's going on there? All I've ever wanted to do is be truthful on this channel. And I really, I'm going to be 59 in May, and I was diagnosed in 1986, and my kids are 30 plus something. They're in their 30s, and our whole life blew up over this, and it's never been able to really get back together out of fear and stigma and a lot of nonsense that is perpetuated over and over again. There are so many people out there that are high-functioning multiples that you would never know. There are others that slide under the radar calling themselves preachers, pastors, and prophets. There are others that call themselves mediums, intuitives, and psychics, and they are always with more than one. They are with more than one entity, spirit, soul, and God, and listening and talking and talking and listening and listening and talking and telling. And they're okay, because that's their position. But you go to a doctor with trauma in your background, which nobody gets through this life without trauma. We're born going through a birth canal. And God help us, we hope our mom's going to push at the right time and somebody's going to be there to catch us. Whatever. It's trauma. We're leaving the spirit world. We're coming down to a womb. And we're coming out into this plane here. So, I mean, even that's traumatic. Some of us remember it more than others. You're not getting away with this life without dying and without trauma. So, the whole thing is to get to how do we deal with trauma? And Shooting the Troops book, Creature of Habit, really just goes back to showing us we are creatures of habit. We adapt to fear. We adapt to, we keep creating a new normal, and a new, one phrase that always goes through my mind when I think of how adaptable we humans are is, oh, you gotta let a person hit rock bottom. When I hear people say that, I kind of giggle inside and think they will adjust to their rock bottom. I've heard people say, well, everybody has a rock bottom. You gotta let them get to their rock bottom. And my response is, and when they get to their rock bottom, they will adjust to it. Well, everybody has a breaking point, and they'll rise again. I just think that we pathologize and stigmatize way too much this entire experience. And there's a whole generation of younger people that are really applying a lot of meaning to this that doesn't mean anything. And they are really drinking the Kool-Aid and in jugs. And losing their life. And I want to just say in memorandum, we have lost a lot of great people who have been multiple. Last May, Donna Williams, a.k.a. Polly, from the UK, passed away of breast cancer. The year before that, Michaela Carter, so here we are, Jamie, Leah, Michaela, passed away of, I believe she had a major seizure from the medication she was on for her condition, which was multiple sclerosis. So many people. Denise Greasley from the UK, I'd like to say I have did. The previous May of pancreatic cancer. From being on a ton of medications she never probably needed to be on. And her husband died that August, Alan, known as a great truther out here, of heartbreak. But he ended up having cancer and dying. He had cancer the whole time, but it just came back in full force after his wife died, and he died too. And I mean, there's more and more people dying that are my age, that have saw the rise and fall of multiple personality in the 80s and 90s, and are kind of like we're the veterans out here, and looking on at the younger people, and all we ever want to do is tell you don't have to suffer with it. You don't have to. So I hope to take a historical look at this, especially when there's so much trauma going on in the world, and so many doctors quick to work with trauma fields and then diagnose and then medicate, and then years of talk therapy, and so much lost. The other book is Hollywood on the Couch. So there's Hollywood on the Couch, Psychiatry and Cinema, Cinema and Psychiatry. Asti, Husteveat, Medical Muses, Creature of Habit, Trudy Chase and the Troops, or The Troops for Trudy Chase. Saving Normal, Dr. Francis Allen. That's a very important book. He was the chair for the original DSM, and he is against there ever being any DSMs ever again. The diagnostic mental health statistical manuals, the Bibles of insurance codes and labels. He's totally against that, and he gives a really good understanding of what happened, the historical account of what happened in the AMA, the APA, and the FDA and Big Pharma, and how we tried to legitimize a science that was never a hard science. We really don't know a lot, and I think one day people will feel comfortable with saying, I don't know. I'm looking forward to that day when doctors can say, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know why you're feeling that way. I don't know why you're having that symptom. I don't know what the outcome will be. Because saying, well, you might feel that, or when a patient says, well, what can I expect? I don't know. It's different for everyone. That would be the right response. To try to tell patients, clients, this is how it's going to be, this is how it most likely will be, this is how it usually is for most men. Not a good thing. Not a good thing to do. The best example I can give about this is when I was pregnant, I remember asking all moms that had had babies or whatever what to expect, and read all the books. Man, I was expecting, oh my God, be in pain and be in labor forever. And I was in the labor room. Yeah, my husband and I were there, and I was just kind of like, push, another pain, push, another pain. Woman screaming all around me. Every time a woman would yell, I would ask, it's going to get that bad for me? They couldn't say. And my doctor was like, one more push. Your baby's here. I was like, really? What? And we make it bigger and worse in our head. And a lot of times that goes from others' experiencing that we believe. It alters our expectations and our reality. So I really am looking at that. And disassociation. Let's think about that for a minute. Um, people disassociate when they eat, when they watch TV, when, I can think of it this way, when you go to have a baby, a lot of times people say, oh, that, like, you know, you won't remember the labor because you would never have another baby if you remembered it, right? So you won't remember. You forget the pain. And that's true. You forget, because if nobody would go back and have another baby if they were remembering that moment of that moment, right? You would never go back to the dentist if you remembered that moment of you would never go back. And I'm saying that to remind myself, because I have a wisdom tooth that is has had a crack in it, and the crack has been there for like a year, and I went to a doctor. He had it remineralized and filled and everything and capped, and but they couldn't do any surgery because I'm hyperthyroid, and the medication I have to be on to stop the hyperthyroid is makes me bleed more. And also, when you're hyperthyroid, you're more prone to infections, so they won't do major surgery until your thyroid levels are normal and you've been able to be off that medication for a while. So I've been waiting for that, and today a piece of my tooth broke right off. And where'd it go? I'm like, oh, now I know I have to go back to the dentist. I had to remind myself, now wait a minute. When it gets to that point of you don't really remember it again, that's why you go back. You anticipate, but you don't remember that. That is what disassociation is. We get to a point in a trauma, in a pain, in something so awful that we go, and somehow we got through it. But how? We weren't there. But who was there? Who said somebody had to be there? Who said a personality had to be there for every trauma? That's what multiple personality has become. Now think about every painful procedure you've ever had done when you've had that moment of, okay, take a deep breath or go to your happy place or whatever, and you've been like, okay, I got the okay, oh, we're done. Really? Oh, I don't even remember that. How about when performers get on the stage and they're so involved in remembering their lines, remembering their dance steps, remembering what they have to do, that they get off stage and they're like, I don't even remember what I did. All a form of disassociation. Why is it bad? Okay, so it's not always bad. It's just not. So I want to go over all of these books. Let me see what else do I have. I will be looking at the Bible because the Bible does talk about this, and to see where we get our misconceptions and fears and superstitions, and where some in the church feel it's one thing, and throughout the years, the Bible is an excellent historical account of everything. And The Disintegration of Personality, written by Dr. Mortin Prince, who is the father of disassociation here in America, who sat under Dr. Jean Martin Chicot and learned and brought it to America, and coined the phrase multiple personality. Joan Acocella, I said Creating Hysteria, because that's a very important book. Again, I am going to look at Exposing Sybill by Debbie Nathan, because there's a couple of things there that are important regarding the media. And then the other book is Woman, a Feminist Approach to Women, a Feminist Approach to Understanding Women in Therapy by Freeman. And I think that's really important because it goes to the weight of what Dr. Sean Martin Chacot was doing at the Salpêtrière Hospital, and how that progressed, and how when women's roles changed, it changed. How when women were able to report an abusive spouse, they were no longer property of their husband or their parents. How the rise went up in reports and in diagnosis and in treatment and in making money, and programs were developed. And then I really am going to look at the difference between the MK Ultra project programs that were government run inhumanely under the names of MK Ultra, Bluebird, Artichoke, Paperclip, and Paperclip 2. And there's more. There's more names. And they're probably still going on somewhere under different names again, because it's the only thing that keeps changing is the names. And the difference between that and the Illuminati. Huge difference. And we clump it all together. Just like the media is clumping together, like I said, guns, violence, and mental health. And they just don't go together. So all those books, hopefully I will be able to do this every Monday, and I don't know what format I'm going to use yet. If it's going to be live on YouTube or a Google chat room, I don't know yet. I will, by tomorrow, I'll get all the links up, because I have some articles I need to get links on and link to. And so if you want to join me in reading over this and discussing, I would very much like to have you join in. You'd be very welcome to join and share your experience, and maybe take away something that I say that's helpful, and I can learn from you something that's helpful, and that's what it's all about. If I don't have a big piece of cotton in my mouth, I will be here this Monday to get this wisdom tooth out. Once and for all. Out. But if I'm not like chewing on a big swab of cotton on that Monday, next Monday, I'll begin talking about the books and sharing a little bit, and we can get together, and I hope you'll join me. Okay, everyone, take care, and good to be back. Okay, bye-bye.